Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Just a quick shout out to the T5 peeps: Bob the Dragon, Crab Lobster, Datamagnet, DuckMachine, Mezec, Try Again 95, Feudic Jarl, Astraya the Dreamer, Casper Arnholtz, Maxwell, Ithilia, Meridian 117, and Jordan Buxbaum. Thank you very much. Story number 1. If an alien and its human sidekick roam the galaxy, willing to do just about any job to keep the fuel tanks full. The only issue, most clients have never seen a human and they're terrified by the sight of one. Written by Slightly Asonic. Okay guys, they'll be here any minute, Gizzip said to two huge burly threen behind him. You guys armed? Yeah. Garzen growled as he pulled out a large blaster pistol. Don't worry, we got you. Well, good, Gizzip said nervously. Be ready for anything, you know what they're like. Gorzion just rolled his eyes and smirked at his fellow threen. Tormrun just grinned. They knew Beth. She was one of the nice ones. Well, nice for a human anyway. There was that one time, but that was just because there were Terrans involved. She couldn't be blamed for that. To say that the Federation humans and Terrans don't exactly get along is like saying that matter and antimatter aren't exactly mixable. A small cargo ship landed on a nearby pad. Gizzip's fur stood on end. He took a deep breath. It was a human, and everyone knew that they could sense fear. One hint of weakness, and they were all over you. They flinked, disembarked, and right behind it, there was a human. It was one of the smaller ones, around 1.6 meters or so. But from what he had heard, it was the little ones that you had to watch. He heard that they had to be twice as deadly in order to survive to adulthood. Please, don't let it be a Terran, he silently prayed. He looked back at Gorzawan. What do you think? Gizzip asked. Does it look violent? Gorzawan bared his fangs. Beth wouldn't hurt a fly unless it was a Terran one, but he just couldn't resist. It's a human. All of them are violent, he growled. Just stay behind us and you'll be fine. Gizzip let out a little yelp and darted behind them. It was all the Guzuan could do to not break down laughing. Hey, Scales, Beth chuckled. Look, it's Gauls and Torm. The Flink squinted his eyes. He couldn't make out the details just yet. Here's our contact with them. Yeah. I see a little bit of purple robe behind them, she laughed. I think they're scared of you. The Flink let out a trilling laugh. Yes, I'm certain that I'm the one that they fear. In a few minutes, they reached the Gizzip. Gizzip peeked down from around the two hulking threen. Keep your hands where I can see them, human, Gorzawan growled and winked. What are you going to do about it, huh? Threen? Yeah, she said as she stuck out her tongue. Gizzip quickly ducked back behind the threen. Don't some creatures flick out their tongues just before they strike? Want to find out, human? Gorzawan snarled menacingly as Thornrum started to laugh. Gizzip looked at him as if he'd lost his mind. Was he trying to intentionally slight the human? Now, the Flink said smoothly. We're all friends here. Gizzip, why don't you call off your muscle and I'll do the same? He turned to Beth. Why don't you back up a little so we can actually do business, huh? Beth glared at the two threen. Fine. This don't mean I'm backing down. Of course, the Flink said smoothly. Nobody is challenging you, Beth, he said in a perfectly serious voice as he aimed 3 of his 4 eyes at Beth, and the two threen winked. Beth backed up a few yards and growled. Once she was at a safe distance, Gizzip stepped forward and the Flink handed him a tablet. Our shipping rates are as listed, he smiled. These are assuming legal cargo. Yes, it is completely legal, Gizzip yelped. It is just that I would like the shipment to be, discreet. There is currently an issue involving trade agreements, and I would not like to, Right, the Flink grinned. That is covered under the standard rates. Just pay up and start loading. Good, Gizzip said, completing the transaction, never taking his eyes off of Beth. Got lucky, threen, Beth snarled and winked. You're the one whose fortune's favored. Gorzawan spat as he flared his nostrils, a threen wink, as they turned to leave. As they left the landing pads, Gizzip turned to Grozan. I'm most impressed with both of you, he said. Will you both be available when I load my cargo, and would you be interested in going on a retainer? We got you covered for the cargo load, and we can talk about the retainer if you want, Grosjean replied, as he reminded himself to buy Beth around next time they meet up. End of story. Story number 2. Survey report written by Scandalia. I am disappointed to find an error in your report, Fenway. This was a serious accusation. The UG Planetary Survey was a prestigious post, and few errors were tolerated. The reports were sober statistical exercises in documenting planets for future mineral extraction, ore ratio, gravity well analysis, fuel route proximity, those sorts of things, tucked into an appendix where notes of intelligent life that may be present and what it would take to A. pacify them, B. buy their allegiance, or C. exterminate them. Vinay sat across from his supervisor, looking at the shared screen projected on the desk between them. He flushed yellow and then back to green, trying to figure out how he'd defend himself without sounding undignified. Sir, he began with a snort. Not a great start, he thought. Sir, I stand by every statement in this report. I spent twice the requisite 50-year study period to compile it. His skin flushed blue for a moment with embarrassment. He didn't need to draw attention to how overtime he already was in this assignment. His supervisor flushed his skin a dark crimson as he scrolled the screen to the relevant page with a highlighted line. Intelligent population, 7 billion. And with all that time you didn't miss this error. I know you've moved up quickly, but I never imagined that you would be this unprofessional after your stellar service in the field. Vinay was embarrassed, but he held it together this time. This was the moment he had been dreading for 10 years since he finished and submitted this report. He shifted nervously to one side and his chair made a surprisingly loud creak. But he kept his skin green. This is not an error. I stand by my assessment. The supervisor's skin was shifting from crimson to purple as he spoke. You'll only embarrass yourself further if you make me delve into the data to find the error and show it to you. The supervisor's skin was turning blue. He knew he needed to calm down. No reason to break the boy's spirit. Now please, just fix the error and return the report. Vinay knew how hard this would be to defend. He'd have to speak quickly, check the population density assessment. Then he added hastily, there is a population counts by continent, region, and community. You'll find all things add up. The supervisor's skin flashed yellow for a moment. Good, Vinay thought. I have his attention. This can't be right, he mumbled after several minutes of scrolling. 1.6 million individuals in the 22 square miles. Vinay said nothing. The report's language was sober. His supervisor wouldn't have noticed anything special about the planet or its people if he'd just skimmed through the report. This time, he was truly reading it, and there were some shocks in store. Reproductive age at 12 years, size average 70 kilograms. Oh my God, they're rodents. Vinay let relief show in his skin as it grew a warm shade of crimson. Yes, sir, they are. The statement was too outrageous for a report, but Vinay had done his very best to paint that exact picture with the data. After several more silent minutes of reading, the supervisor leaned slowly back away from the screen. So, what do you recommend? Vinay collected himself. There is an enormous value in their planet's mineral stores, but I can't see a way forward. The silence hung in the office again for several minutes. Vinay and his supervisor both knew what the UGPS had never failed to recommend a strategy for harvesting minerals from a planet. We can never pacify them. They have no unified government, let alone a common will like most large population species. He trailed off for a moment, considering whether to get into the discussion of how utterly inadequate that category was to describe the species, or to bring up his proposal for a new category, ultra-large population species. That was a convention for another time, so he continued. Besides, even if we bought Wolf 1 generation, we would have to negotiate with a whole new generation in only 30 to 40 years. This also brought to mind the question of the relevance of the early work of his 100-year study on the quickly changing species, and his concerns about their unprecedented exponential technological development. Also, a discussion for another time. That left only a third option. a politically inconvenient last resort. Benet thought the problems with this were the obvious, but he decided that he should be said nonetheless. Of course, we can never exterminate them all either. Suppose we bathe the whole planet with plasma for a decade. If 150 survived, they would rebuild their population back to the Minions very easily in only 200 years. By my estimates, the mining rigs would barely have spun up by then, and they could be overrun. Silence again. The two wore their yellow skin without shame. This was an embarrassment, but not just for them. This is worse than a mistake, and Fenay knew it. It was heresy to claim that a planet was beyond the reach of the UG. Fenay didn't like the facts, but they were still the facts. So the question is, Fenay's supervisor began, locking eyes with Fenay and speaking very deliberately as he tapped a few keys on his screen. Why didn't you record the location of this system in your report? As he spoke, the supervisor cleared the location information from his report fields. Fenay's skin slowly faded black to crimson with relief as he matched his supervisor's gaze, and his deliberate tone. Just a simple mistake, sir. Mistakes happen, Fenay. Forget it. Still, no reason to file a useless report, he mumbled, as if to himself as he cleared the report off his screen. Take some time off. Report in 10 years for your next assignment. He cleared his throat with relief as he dropped eye contact. Good work. End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. There are links down below both to support this channel and for the author of this fiction. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.